So, good morning. Hi again for those who already joined the previous session today. Thanks so much for giving us the chance to run this second seminar today. This session is clearly linked to the previous one. Our colleague Lourdes mentioned, for example, the need to anticipate the selection and creation of the resources when we design our courses, the teaching guide as a blueprint, or the fact that designs does not always involve complex tools, but intention. In this session, my colleague Maite and myself invite you to reflect on the way we can improve pedagogical design in higher education, taking into account these elements, wherever the scenario of our institution, in person, blended, or fully online. Immersed in different digital transformation initiatives, some higher education institutions are facing this transition from the perspective of substitution or replacement, which was discussed in the previous webinar by Lourdes and Marcelo. Often, as organizations look for migrating to more hybrid models, they become too much focused on the technology they need, but lose along the way many of the elements of the teaching and learning design process. Some of these elements will work just as well in our new environment as they did in the old one. Others we will have to forget, adapt, or totally renew. Technological means used in a certain way, as we saw, cannot only improve our teaching practice, but also improve students' learning experience and their performance. That's why it's so important to get to know how we can design the learning process in our courses. And this is the focus of this seminar in a particular way. So, having said that, our presentation is oriented to share with you not only the basics of learning design for different scenarios in higher education, which most of we already know, but above all, those design highlights that are not always perceived as important, but are essential when facing a learner-centered design in the framework of active learning approaches. So, we have structured the session in 6 blocks, taking into account that we will dedicate, as the previous webinars, about 1 hour or 1 hour and 10 to the presentation, and about 20 minutes to your reflections, questions, doubts, or simply to share what you have learned from the session. These topics are aimed at answering decision-making questions for educators when they face a transition of their teaching towards more digital models. However, as I said previously, all the design elements that we will discuss today are elements that you have also to consider when designing your courses with or without technology. Let's see then what the mentioned blocks will be about. First, we will invite you to dive below the water level to see what really lies beneath effective learning design. Imagine that learning design is an iceberg, right? In this iceberg, there are visible and not that easily perceived elements. These elements underwater are very important because are they responsible that teaching and learning occurs satisfactorily for all parts. The underwater elements ensure that the iceberg floats. We will then broaden our perspective on course design. We will invite you not to only focus on what content we want students to learn, but on what we want them to be able to do with that content, which is quite different. And this will drive us to talk about competency-based learning design. After that, and this will be number 3, we will go in depth into how we can face the way the students learn. Yeah, that's interesting. We usually work under the perspective that there is life beyond read this text and then answer these questions. There are many other educational activities and methodologies that we can design and put into practice. In previous sessions, we have noticed the importance of planning activities that are engaging. We will see what these activities can be and what methodologies we can accompany them with. Number 4 is about assessment. The word assessment might not awaken too many positive emotions in many cases, but if we think that assessing means helping to learn, things change. And help students learn means to give them enough opportunities to do it along the course or along the program or the educational experience, not just one opportunity. And we will see how educators can, through formative feedback, help them in their progress. What does this mean? Let's see it through an example before going on, a brief one. Imagine that you are a tennis instructor. The player, your student, fails the serve. When providing feedback, it's better to tell him or her the ball went out than to say that you missed the serve. But it's even better to say the ball has gone out 15 centimeters from the line. This is a more precise feedback that allows students to see that next time they only have to make an effort of 15 centimeters to do it right. Block number 5 is about giving coherence to all the design elements, those above the water level and those below. It seems obvious, but it's not that easy to do. And finally, and this will be block 6, we will just highlight some takeaways that might arise, questions for reflections. And by sharing this, we can finish the session having learned from both sides. Right? Are you ready? Yeah, okay, then let's start. We are going to put on our diving suits, or if you are very cold, you can embark on an underwater vision boat. But first, let's see what's visible in a course, in the design iceberg. There are elements that are usually visible when learning design. Content might be something that is clearly above the water level. It's a very visible element of course design. Others might be lecture hours, for example, or learning activities, such as projects or cases or tests, whatever the students do in our course. Also learning resources, the Moodle, the use of Moodle or other LMS, and assessment activities, and of course, exams if you have. Now we invite you to see what's underneath the design iceberg, and we will do it through a brief case based on a true story. Let me introduce you to Marina and Peter. Yeah, okay. Marina and Peter are professors at a European university. Recently, the university proposed them to write a teaching material, which they have accepted. They are often commissioned by other institutions as content experts on leadership in organizations. They have been told that they have to write a content module corresponding to 50 hours. 50 hours. The module must have a didactic orientation, of course, addressing the key aspects of leadership and team management that managers of large companies in different sectors must learn how to develop. But Marina doesn't know where to start. This is quite a difficult commitment, right? Peter sees things more clearly. He thinks that they should do it. The only thing that they have to do is to write what they teach in class. And he says it's not that difficult. They are subject matter experts. It wouldn't be difficult for them. But Marina is asking herself some questions. She needs more information to decide how to approach the work. What's the approach of the commitment? If you were in their shoes, what 3 or 4 questions would Marina and Peter need to order to tackle the assignment in good conditions? Just think about this for a while. What additional information do they need to be able to focus the development of the module? Okay, we are going to help you a little bit. We might imagine 4 design questions that might arise. Do they have to write the same and in the same way if the course is in person, as if it's blended or fully online? Do they have to write in the same way if the course is self-training, or if it's a course with a teacher, or both? What does it mean, the dedication of 50 hours of the course? What does it mean that the dedication of the module is 50 hours? From whom and doing what? So, a first thing we could tell our friends is that if they write content to be read and learned in 50 hours, there's no time for anything else in the course. However, if we think about the role of the module within the course, or if we write for less dedication to the module, students will be able to do more things, such as revising other learning materials, planning their study, learning how to use a specific tool, as was mentioned in the previous seminar, among others. It's important to guide the use of the module and the dedication to the learning activities. Why? Let's see it with an example again. Investigating how, for example, that's an example, investigating how Elon Musk's satellites running around the Earth can be exciting for many students. But if they devote all their time to this motivating task, they may find themselves short on time or unable to devote their efforts to other activities. And this can have consequences in terms of results, performance, and also in terms of dropouts. So now we have discovered 2 design elements underneath the iceberg: time, dedication, effort to the task, to the materials, and guidelines on the use of the resources. Allotted time to work with content is clearly one of the elements that are not always taken into account when designing learning. Or is it? Do we take into account the time students need to dedicate to complementary resources to revise during their autonomous learning hours at home? Time is important for the iceberg not to sink. Just remember that. And what about learning objectives? When I showed you the case of Peter and Marina some minutes ago, some of you probably wondered about the learning goals, and you were right. Do you think they are a visible part or a hidden part of our designs? Definitely, learning goals should be always present, but writing learning goals is the first that we should do. What's behind them? And this is something below the water level. Let's gonna see what it is. There are basic design questions that will help us to start designing our courses before formulating learning goals. To do this, we propose you to apply a formula, a very simple one. We will ask ourselves 4 questions and 1 more. To apply this formula, don't worry, you do not have to write a doctoral thesis. It's just an exercise, a very simple exercise to effectively orient your course. But we recommend you to take your time to apply this formula. The first element of the formula, it's me, the educator. What do you expect to happen in my course? What do I imagine will happen? And even what motivates me to start this course or subject? In this exercise, it will be useful. For example, it's useful for me and for my colleagues. Let's see if this can be useful also for you. Acknowledging that I, the teacher, know, but so do they, the students. Where do I want to take them? Second, recognizing that everyone has things that are worth improving in order to be better people in every aspect of their lives, personal or professional. Also, recognizing that everyone has a talent, something that makes them special and that's worth bringing out. Believe in your students' talent. We all have a genius. Wouldn't you love for your students to discover what their geniuses are and be able to explore them together? And finally, if you feel so, value people's innate ability to learn. Okay, that's element number 1 of the formula, which is meet the educator. Number 2 of the formula, students, of course. What do I think students expect to find in my course? What do they come looking for? Beyond listening to me, taking notes, what else they would like to happen here? Element number 3, how I will stage the scenario to ensure that the basic aspects of the previous questions converge effectively. Additionally, reflect on the role as a teacher in this context. What kind of atmosphere of trust do you want to foster in the classroom? And what level of teaching and affective presence do you aim to establish? Students will appreciate that we care about how they are progressing in their learning. This is best not to improvise. And the element number 4, guidance and support, of course. How I am going to help students to learn, what feedback I'm going to give them, when, how I'm going to position myself with respect to this. Once we have asked ourselves these 4 questions and we have written down the answers, we can start to think about thinking about which elements will form part of the design puzzle, because we all know that design is not a linear process, it's a puzzle. A puzzle has to be made. After these 4 questions, it's time to add one more, the last of the formula. This last question is, what are the students are going to do? Not what I'm going to explain them in class or in my course, but what I'm going to ask them to do, what results of their learning are they going to share, which activities will help them learn, and what evidences will arise. Okay, so far we figured out which design elements are important to make everything float. Now that we know that learning objectives or learning goals can be based on many more things than just content, we will see how to formulate them so as not to leave anything behind. So my colleague Maite will give you details about that. Maite, whenever you wish, you can go on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Let me start with a simple question after Cristina's intervention. What do we want for our students? It's just about learning facts, or is it about helping them develop skills to face the challenges of today's world? So competency-based curriculum design is about more than just grades. It focuses on building skills like critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity. So things that students need to succeed in life and work. And so in this part of the session, we will talk about why this approach is important, when it makes sense to use it, and how we can apply it on our teaching. So let's get started. So as we know, the demands of the labor market are increasingly shaping university education. More than ever, there is a strong focus on graduates who are not only well-trained, but also capable of navigating the complexities of 21st century society. And this shifts it clear that universities must go beyond simply imparting knowledge. So it's not enough to just know a lot. Graduates need to be able to apply this knowledge effectively and in real world situation. And this is where competencies come in. Competencies are the skills, the knowledge, and the abilities that students can actively use to solve problems and to meet challenges. In terms of curriculum design, we must move from activities that only test what students know to those that show what they can actually do. So this connection between theory and practice is essential in preparing students to handle today's challenges effectively. So let's explore what competence really mean and why competency-based education has become so crucial in the way we design learning today. So why are we focusing more on competencies rather than just content? Let's break it down. First, because knowledge becomes outdated very quickly. In today's fast-paced world, it's more valuable for students to develop the skill to search for, to evaluate, and to use information rather than just memorizing facts. So this competency ensures that students can continue to learn through their lives, no matter how quickly knowledge changes. Second, there's like a growing demand for an holistic education. We are moving beyond fragmented, isolated subjects to embrace more general and transversal competencies that apply across various fields. And this aligns with Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which emphasizes that education should support the development of a wide range of skills and not just one specific area. Third, as we have discussed, the labor market demands are evolving and are pushing universities to provide education that is more closely tied to professional skills. Competency-based education allows us to better prepare students for the workforce, ensuring they can meet the challenges and demands of the professional world. And finally, and perhaps the most importantly, we have come to understand that effective teaching and learning requires a new mindset, one in which students are active participants in their learning. They must become the protagonists of their own educational journey. And this shift is essential for creating an university system that truly prepares students for the challenges of today's world. And this is why competency-based education is not just the trend, but a critical element in shaping the future of higher education or online higher education. So now let's talk about why it's crucial to shift from assessing what students know to assessing what they can actually do. For a long time, education has focused primarily on measuring knowledge, facts, theories, and information that students can memorize. But as all we know, the world doesn't just need people who know things. It needs people who can solve problems and think critically and apply what they know in real world situations. And this shift is essential because today's world is full of complex challenges that demand more than just theoretical understanding. So we need to bridge the gap between knowledge and practice. And competency-based education is at the heart of this change. It focuses on developing the skills that students need to apply their knowledge effectively. So in other words, it's not just about knowing facts or concepts, it's about doing something with that knowledge. And that's what we should be assessing. Are the students able to use their skills in real world situations? Can they tackle challenges and come up with solutions? And what are competencies? So competencies are a combination of knowledge, skills, and personal resources that enable individuals to address real-world challenges. If we look at the table displayed here, we can break it down further. So competencies can be understood across 4 different domains. First, we have to know. This refers to the knowledge students acquire, facts, theories, concepts, and information they need to understand. It's what we usually think of as traditional learning. Then we have the know how to be. This is about the personal domain, how students develop the internal traits, attitudes, values that shape who they are. So it's the ability to be reflective, ethical, and resilient. Then we have the know how to be present. That refers to the social domain, the ability to communicate effectively, collaborate with others, and engage in social and professional context. So it's about emotional intelligence also and interpersonal skills. And finally, we have the know how to do. This is the professional domain that focuses on the ability to take action. Students should not only know how to do, but also how to do it. So how to apply their knowledge in practical and professional situation. So in a sense, competency-based education moves beyond assessing just what students know, and emphasizes this, what they can do with that knowledge and how they can apply it across different contexts. This holistic approach is essential for preparing students for the challenges of today's world. So if we aim to evolve towards competence-based education, it's essential to acknowledge that this transition will require additional effort, and it especially involves, first, planning. We must begin with a clear vision of the professional and civic profile we want to shape in our students. This means examining how each course in the program can contribute to the development of competencies rather than focusing solely on the content. So the goal is to align the curriculum with the competencies we aim to foster, making sure that every subject plays a role in achieving these outcomes. Second, the methodology. This shift requires adapting teaching methods that promote active situated learning. We need to incorporate activities such as role-playing, simulations, case studies, practical projects, internships. These methods encourage students to apply their knowledge in real-world context, helping them develop the practical skills needed for professional environments. And finally, a key element of this change is transforming our approach to assessment. It's not just about testing students on what they remember or know, but about how they apply their knowledge in a specific context. So authentic assessments such as problem-solving task or project-based evaluation help measure the real-world effectiveness of the knowledge and skills that students have developed. When we talk about working with competencies, also there are several key points we must consider to ensure that our learning design is effective and truly prepares the students for real-world challenges. So first, we need to create a learning context that reflects the conditions in which students will apply their competencies in the future. This means designing learning experiences that are as close as possible to what they will encounter in their professional environments. This way, they are not just preparing for an exam, but for real situations. Second, students must be able to act effectively with the knowledge they have gained. It's not enough for them to simply store information. They need to learn how to use it to produce real results. The goal is for students to become professionals who can make decisions and solve problems by applying what they have learned. Furthermore, the tasks given to students should involve complex and structured challenges. Students shouldn't just face simple problems. They should work on tasks that require judgment and involve multiple steps. And this helps develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And finally, assessment should be integrated into the activity itself. Instead of separating learning from evaluation or assessment, we must assess students based on the work they produce. So the evidence of the learning will be the products they create, which should reflect the knowledge and competencies they have developed. So by focusing on these elements, we ensure that our students are not only gaining knowledge, but are also ready to use it effectively in the real world. As competence-based education continues to grow, the role of technology in supporting and enhancing learning is more important than ever. So, however, technology should not simply replicate traditional learning methods. It should put the boundaries of what students can do, fostering an active student-centered approach to learning. The SAMR model is a useful tool for educations when integrating technology into their teaching. So this model guides us in selecting digital tools that go beyond just supporting learning. It really transforms how competences are developed. So this model encourages deeper learning, creativity, engagement, aligning with modern educational goals such as personalized learning and student-centered learning environments. It also ties in with digital transformation initiatives in education, offering like a framework for education as they transition to online and hybrid learning models. And now Chris will go deeper into these kind of activities that can effectively improve teaching and learning methodologies.
Okay, thanks, Maite. Okay, let's move on to block 3 then of this presentation. We have seen which design questions educators can arise to start learning design, and this was block number 1. After that, we have acknowledged the importance of competency-based design in higher education and its implications in student engagement and performance, and this has been block number 2. Now we will talk another element of learning design, which is also a key issue for these students' engagement and performance, active learning activities and methodologies. Yes, we can. As we have acknowledged, the development of competencies requires an effort from educators during the design process. I often tell my colleagues that the hardest part about competencies isn't the evaluation or the assessment, but rather getting the students to learn them. Because as we have seen, competency learning goes beyond asking students to reproduce a content. Again, let's see this with a brief example. And this is a little bit something which continues with Maite's presentation, right? But this is a concrete example. Imagine this situation briefly. Yeah, would you pass? Yeah, okay, this one. Thanks, Maite. Imagine this situation briefly. These are examples of 4 activities in which we are asking the student to generate evidence. The evidence that Maite mentioned, to be able to observe what the student have learned and have done, and we can assess it. When we talk about competencies, we must propose productive activities, not merely reproductive ones. A specific learning activity requires students to view the documentary entitled Kiss the Ground, right? Imagine this example. In this documentary, scientists and activists reveal the ways in which the Earth's soil can be the key to combating climate change and preserving the planet. We ask students to solve task 1. Tell me what you have seen and explain what the video says. So here that we are asking them to reproduce what the documentary is saying. Now imagine a second task. This task consists of task 1 plus task 2, which is explain in your own words what the documentary contributes to the community and give at least an example from your own experience. In this case, we are asking for something else. This is not only reproductive. Students must elaborate something. Okay, let's go with task number 3 now. Thanks. Task 3 consists of task 1 plus task 2. And then we ask students, compare the way grain is grown in the southern United States and its impact at the local level with the cultivation in Spain. Okay, we are asking them to do something else to reflect, further reflect on what they have to do and what they are learning. In task 4, we tell students, okay, taking into account what you have learned so far, explain how land use has changed in Spain and analyze the consequences it may have had on the biodiversity, paying attention to the drivers of these changes. To affirm that the student is competent in performing a task or solving a problem, he or she must know how to do many things oriented to a purpose, not separate things without connection. Competence requires combining many different knowledge and skills to solve concrete situations. So as Maite mentioned, tasks 1 and 2 are important, but they are not low-level tasks. On the contrary, they are necessary to develop the following tasks. What we mean here is that they are just that, previous tasks. The focus of assessment should be on the delivery of task 4. which is actually the learning activity that we are proposing and the evidence that the student is gonna provide us. So next, yeah. Designing courses under this approach encourages the adoption of more active teaching methodologies and emphasizes productive activities over rote learning. This shift transforms the learning experience and necessitates greater engagement and participation from students. As we have acknowledged, the development of competencies requires an effort from educators during the design process. And technology plays a vital role in facilitating effective learning activities. Activities, as described by Gilles Salmon in her book and website, Activities, the key to active online learning, may promote active and participatory learning through a student-centered approach. Maite, could you please go to the previous slide, please? Yeah, thank you. In this framework, learners construct knowledge through meaningful interactions with their peers, enhancing understanding and retention. And leveraging these innovative strategies creates a dynamic learning environment that empowers students to take charge of their educational journey. So please, Alfredo, if you could just post the link of Gilles' website on the chat so everybody can have a look. That would be, I think it would be helpful. Okay, now, yes, we go just through the next slide. We have to take into account that not all activities are equally effective. Their success depends on adherence to specific design principles. This table below illustrates diverse types of activities aligned with key design principles. This is a wonderful resource by our work colleagues Marcelo Maina and Lourdes Guardia. The table points out different kinds of learning activities linked to 10 design principles. Again, we could share the link of this resource via the chat. Most of these activities can be effectively implemented in face-to-face, hybrid or online settings. Instead of merely adapting in-person methods for online use, we should explore the unique potential of each methodology across different contexts. For each design principle, in this, the table shows a description and some examples of learning activities. I will highlight a couple of these principles with the corresponding examples. The rest you can see in the shared infographic, right? Here we have examples of activities related with the design principle of relevance, which refers to activities that may be meaningful, more authentic, and engaging. Some of these activities might be, for example, solve interactive case studies and decision-making exercises, conduct interviews with real practitioners to collect data, or propose assignments connected to students' social environments. Another example, in this case, regarding the principle of interactivity, which refers to activities that might foster collaboration among students, engage in discussion, or collectively develop ideas and solutions. Some of these activities might be role-playing, the use of jigsaws or puzzle-based activities, interactive videos featuring notes or embedded questions, or collaborative mind maps or visual representations of ideas through infographics or interactive maps. Okay, now that we have seen examples of learning activities, let's see different ways to apply them or to put them into practice. These methodologies, you can see, can be applied in both online and traditional classrooms that use technology. As for activities, problem-based learning, design thinking, or challenge-based learning, among the rest, may be applied to different teaching and learning scenarios. And again, instead of merely adapting in-person methods for online use, we should explore the potential of each methodology across different contexts. Again, our work colleagues provide us with these beautiful infographics, beautiful and useful infographics about active learning methodology. So again, if Alfredo, you can share the link through the chat, it would be helpful for our audience. Okay, then. We are going to continue exploring the secrets under the eyes of our iceberg, especially with everything that has to do with e-assessment, because helping students learn is the key. So Maite, the floor is yours again.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Thank you. So if we truly want to change the learning experience for our students and influence how they respond to our teaching or how they behave, we must recognize that the assessment is the most powerful tool we have. So in fact, how we assess our educational proposal determines its meaning and impact. For this reason, as an institution, we need to evolve towards a shift in our assessment culture. Often, we view assessment simply as a means to confirm what students has learned, and we stop here. So we reduce assessment to this limited function, and it becomes a bureaucratic task aimed only at measuring knowledge at a particular moment in time. So we end up ranking this knowledge, deciding whether it's more or less sufficient or more or less excellent. And this approach restricts our teaching to a narrow focus. So correcting mistakes and assigning grades, it's really limited. It takes us away from the true purpose of education, which is to foster learning and improvement. So how often have we encountered, for example, students who only care about the minimum they need to go or to do to pass? So the challenge here is to move beyond seeing assessment as a tool for grading and instead adopt a new mindset, which is the assessment for learning. The key shift is to view assessment not as a final judgment, but as a part of the ongoing learning process. We need to see teaching and learning as dynamic and continuous and not only static. So assessment should be a process that helps students understand their progress. It helps them identify what they have mastered and what they need to work on, and use that knowledge to guide further learning. And above all, first, we must ensure that students have a positive experience when assessment is introduced. So what is assessment? The first step in the assessment process is to gather evidence of student learning. This can be done through a variety of means, such as assignments, quizzes, projects, or group work. The aim here is to capture a comprehensive picture of the students' progress, skills, and abilities. So this evidence provides a foundation for further analysis and reflection on how well the students are meeting the learning objectives. Then we have to apply the quality criteria. Once evidence is collected, the next step involves applying quality criteria to evaluate that evidence. Quality criteria might include clear standards, rubrics, or benchmarks that guide the assessment. So it ensures that the assessment is fair, is consistent, and aligned with the intended learning outcomes. And these steps help ensure that the evidence is reliable and meaningful in terms of assessing students' competencies. And then we have judging the learning value. So in this stage, we assess the value of the learning outcomes based on the evidence collected and the criteria applied. These steps require carefully a judgment of how well students have demonstrated their understanding and competencies. So we have to ask ourselves, are the outcomes aligned with the intended learning objectives? What do these outcomes reveal about students' overall development? And finally, we have feedback. Feedback plays a crucial role in the assessment process. So it should be reflective, situated, dialogic. So this means it's not just about giving a grade, but providing meaningful guidance that helps students interpret their performance and improve their learning. As we will see in the following slides, feedback should be ongoing. It should be an interactive process where students can ask questions, can reflect on their strengths, can reflect on their weaknesses as well, and make adjustments of their learning strategies. So this cycle of feedback encourages continuous improvement and self-regulation. So by integrating these key stages into the assessment process, we ensure this holistic and supportive learning environment. So when we think about assessment, we can approach it from two distinct angles. On one hand, it can be seen as a full stop in the teaching process. So like an isolated moment focused on measuring the knowledge students have gained. Or in the other hand, we can see assessment as an essential component of the learning journey, acting as a tool that enhances students' understanding of their own learning. As we have been discussing, assessing for learning is an approach that views online assessment as the thread that connects and drives learning forward. It also helps keep students engaged, active, motivated through all the process. So, of course, in this new view, the role of grading is still present, but it's not the primary focus or the most important aspect. So, where do we want to go from here? As we have mentioned, the way we assess will define the educational experience and its purpose. So now we have to think about what should we focus on. Do we want to focus solely on the accreditation of learning, which involves summative or final assessment and exam, certification, or accreditation of these achievements? Or we would like to focus on continuous improvement for learning and the development of competencies, which will include formative and ongoing assessment, diverse activities, personalized feedbacks, and more. So in this process of reflection on where we want to head, the first step is to ensure that students feel satisfied with the evaluation experience. And second, that they acknowledge that any assessment process is subjective. So however we can measure to ensure that this subjectivity is recognized and valued. So formative assessment is not just a tool for measuring knowledge. It's a meaning of guiding students through their learning journey, ensuring they understand their progress, their strengths, and their areas of improvement. And what is digital assessment? Digital assessment involves using technology to evaluate students' learning through methods like online quizzes, projects, presentations, and more, as Chris said. It enhances accessibility and flexibility, and it offers students a diverse and convenient way to engage with assessments. So effective digital assessment starts with a clear planning to determine what evidence we want to gather. This means identifying what we want to assess before selecting the assessment method. So it's essential to align the choice of assessment strategies with the learning outcomes to ensure that the evaluation accurately measures students' understanding and skills. And one thing that is really important is that no single assessment method is superior. So instead, the value of each method lies in how well the strategy captures relevant information about student learning. So the goal is to choose methods that best reflect the intended learning outcomes and provide meaningful insight into students' progress. So from here, we need to think of technology as an ally in our educational planning and focus on those aspects where it can play an important role. The pedagogical integration of technology help us improve the assessment process in areas such as planning, generating and gathering evidence, providing feedback, enabling synchronous or asynchronous dialogue. It helps as well offering access to information among others. But while technology should not be the center or the objective of the assessment, we must consider it as a valuable ally in our assessment planning and strengthen the aspects where it can make a significant contribution. Let's take a closer look at how we can use digital assessment effectively. First of all, it's important to remember that no single assessment method is perfect, as we said, and the real value lies in how well our chosen method captures relevant information about learning. First, we have self-assessment strategies. This is when students reflect their own learning progress, identifying areas where they need to improve. Self-assessment encourages students to take ownership of their learning making them more aware of their strengths and weaknesses. So it's like a simple way to implement this by using self-assessment rubrics where students can score themselves based on a clear criteria. So this helps them think critically about their own work and set goals for improvement. Then we can have a multi-agent assessment, which is another valuable strategy, which involves peer assessment and co-evaluation. This means giving students the opportunity to assess each other's works. Peer feedback can be incredibly powerful because it allows students to engage with their peers' ideas and offers them like a fresh perspective. It also encourages constructive criticism, helps everyone to improve. So you can incorporate this by having students provide feedback on a classmate's project or classmate's assignment. And how can we do it? No, first of all, you have to give students the role of evaluators. So one way to get students involved in assessment is to allow them to take on the role of evaluator. You could give them this responsibility for a single task or across several assignments through the semester. Second, you have to clarify the evaluation criteria. It's crucial that students know exactly what they are evaluating. So you should provide them a clear and specific evaluation criteria. In this way, students will know exactly what to look for when assessing their peers' work, making the process more objective and structured. Then you have to assign value to the role of evaluator. Don't just give students the responsibility to assess, but you can give this role weight. You can include the quality of their feedback as part of their grade, for example. So this helps emphasize how important their evaluative skills are, and it may motivate them to take the task more seriously. And finally, you should remember that the final responsibility remains with you. So while students can play an important role in evaluating each other's work, remember that as instructors, the final responsibility for the assessment lies with us. So for example, if we have a project divided into phases, theoretical framework, development, results, students might assess each other's work for each phase, but we must supervise and ultimately make the final judgment about the quality of the work. And then we have digital portfolios. This is a platform where students can collect showcase of their work through the course, for example. So it's an ongoing way for students to demonstrate their progress and to reflect on their learning journey. Instead of just submitting one final assignment, students could compile their work into a portfolio that tracks their development. This not only allows them to see how far they have come, but also provide them with something to show off their competencies to a wider audience. And what if assessment could become a tool for students to reflect on what they have learned and to identify areas where they can improve, no? So when we engage students actively in the assessment process, this is exactly what happens. They don't just get a grade, they get inside their own learning process, and that's really powerful. So now you might be wondering, what does this actually look like in practices, no? And here I listed like a few key elements that make this approach work. First, it's important to have a variety of activities. So, for example, quizzes, projects, presentations, peer reviews, or even reflective journals. This variety allows the students to show their learning in different ways, and it keeps the process interesting and more aligned with real-world skills. Then you should take into account the currents between teaching methods and assessment. So if we suddenly switch to a high-tech exams as the only form of assessment, we risk undermining all the learning we have worked so hard to create, for example. Then think about the workload appropriateness. So we have to be mindful that the assessments we set for students are manageable and realistic. Then we have the teacher coordination. So teachers also need to be coordinated in their approach to assessment. This doesn't mean that everyone has to do the same thing, but there should be a shared understanding of what the assessment are meant to achieve. Then you think about the assessment criteria. One of the most important elements, as we were saying, is making the assessment criteria clear to students. If students don't understand what they are being assessed on, how can they know what they need to focus on? So you need to provide clear, transparent criteria that help students know exactly what is expected for them to do. Then this real-world relevance, no? Assessment should reflect real-world relevance. This doesn't mean every assessment has to mirror a workplace scenario, but that it does mean that students should be able to see the value in what they are being asked to do. So does it connect to skills they will need outside the classroom? Does this assessment have practical implications for their future careers, for example? Then we have for multi-agent assessment, as we have talked about. And finally, the formative feedback. We can overlook the importance of formative feedback. Instead of waiting until the end of the course to tell students how they are doing, we need to be giving them feedback along the way. Formative feedback helps the student understand where they are in their learning, what they are doing well, and what they still need to work on. So feedback, we could say that is a reflective, contextual, and dialogical process. It's like an ongoing exchange between the teacher and the student over time, where the goal is for students to make sense of the information they receive and use it to improve their learning. And that's where its power lies. So feedback, it's not just a one-off event. It's not like a limited providing of answers or pointing out mistakes. It's like a dynamic, ongoing interactions. It's like a continuous process of sharing information, discussing learning, and guiding students toward improvement. And what's even more important is that both the teacher and the students are active participants in this process. So as teachers, we should provide feedback that highlights their strengths. So and also point out areas that need improvement so they can keep progressing. Even when students do something well, feedback is still essential. No? This continuous feedback loop is what truly drives motivation, satisfaction, learning, etc. So what to consider in feedback? No? Here you have like some key questions, which are, how is the student learning? No? We should understand how a student is learning, because it's important. Is the student managing their time effectively, for example? Are they using the right strategies to tackle tasks? This reflection helps them identify what's working and where they can improve. So if they're struggling with the time management, for example, or with organization, feedback can guide them towards more effective strategies to stay on track. Then we have to ask them ourselves, what is the student learning? What surprises them? What have they discovered that they didn't know before? What misconceptions have they had to unlearn in order to grasp new concepts? So this second reflection fosters a deeper understanding of the material and helps students connect new knowledge with the existing framework. Then we have to ask ourselves, finally, what can the student do to enhance their learning? Does the student need to adopt new study habits or focus more on certain topics, for example? Are there really areas where they should spend more time practicing? So by guiding students to think about how they can improve their approach to learning, you help them feel more in control of their academic process. As we are run out of time, I would like to focus on the next, on this slide. So in this slide, we explore the essential question, what is the best option for managing feedback in each case? To begin, we need to remember that feedback plays a central role in learning. It should not be something we offer at the end of the process, as we said, but rather integrated into the learning journey. So this is how we can guide students, helping them see how they are evolving, what they have learned, the competencies they are developing, and those still need to work on. So by thoughtfully planning when and how to provide formative feedback, we can support students in regulating their learning process. So what options do we have for delivering feedback, no? Or which is the best in each context? You can implement individualized feedback on the student's own work. So this is valuable because it directly targets the student's learning journey. We can also use tools like checklists, rubrics, or verification scales for more structured feedback that helps the student identify specific areas for improvement. We also have the automated feedback that delivered through closed surveys or questionnaires and can save time, but it's also true that it should still be personalized and provide meaningful insights. You also have collective feedback for the whole class group, which is often useful for addressing common challenges or patterns observed in assessment. But it's important not to overlook the value of individual dialogues between the evaluator and the evaluated. This two-way communication helps ensure that students fully understand the feedback and know how to apply it. So this kind of collective feedback is particularly valuable in large classes. And then we have the peer feedback or self-assessment that, as we said, encourages students to take ownership of their learning and engage in reflective thinking, which can be significantly enhance their metacognitive skills. So now I would like to consider the key aspects that make feedback effective. First of all, feedback should have two parts. So it's important to know that it should have a corrective component to indicate what is correct or incorrect, but also should have an elaborative one, where teachers provide questions, suggestions, and strategies to help students improve their work. Second key aspect is that feedback must be provided in time for students to act on it. So immediate feedback, especially during the development of activities, is the key. So it should be provided within 48 hours, for example, if we want the students to do some adjustments. Or after a submission, feedback should not be given after around 10 days. So we have to help students understand their strengths, their weaknesses, and what they can do to improve their performance. And if it's after 10 days, it may be too late. The third key aspect will be, after providing feedback, initiate a dialogue with the students. So we ensure that they understand and they can use the information to improve their performance. Fourth, it's essential to create moments where students can demonstrate that they have integrated feedback. So for instance, after receiving feedback, you can ask them to resubmit improved work, or you can create even a final synthesis activities that showcases how they have applied the feedback. And finally, you have to think about asynchronous or synchronous, written, oral, video feedback. So in today's learning environment, there is flexibility in how feedback can be delivered. With large classes, technology can be a valuable ally, allowing for synchronous or asynchronous feedback through different mediums, written, oral, video. So this flexibility ensures that feedback can be personalized and students can review it as when they need it. So by focusing on these aspects, I think we can ensure that feedback becomes a powerful tool in supporting student growth and learning.
Okay, sorry. Now, thanks, Maite. Having come this far, we hope you are enjoying the session. We still have two more blocks left, but they are smaller than the previous one, and then we will let you go. Do you remember the design iceberg? Coherence between all elements is what will keep it afloat. So, constructive alignment. We are going to tell you about this concept briefly. Could you please pass next slide, Maite? Or thanks. Constructive alignment refers to connected intended learning outcomes, learning activities, and assessment tasks to enhance student learning. The alignment creates a cohesive educational experience, reduces student anxiety by clarifying expectations, and enhances motivation. Then next, please. Let's see how this align might exist in the design of a learning activity. Imagine for a moment that you have to design an online debate. This activity has usually 4 phases. Formulation according to purpose, dynamizing and feedback, organization, and closing. Once more, this is about questions. Designing is a decision-making process, so to produce consistent designs, we must make ourselves good questions to get good answers that help us to provide the best learning experience. So now I would like to draw your attention in this example. Again, as you have probably noticed, we like examples a lot. I don't want to make this controversial, but it's just an example of a learning activity that could have happened at the university during the pandemic. This is a template that you can use when designing, in this case, a forum of debate in your course. What happens usually is that we teach, then students do their work, their solve activities, and we provide them an online space, a forum, a debate space in our Moodle or LMS so that they can discuss about the topic and learn from peers. Nothing bad about doing that, on the contrary. Many times we see that the learning to be observed has to do with the ability to interact, to point out innovative ideas, or to relate approximately with the rest of the students. But those might be criteria for participation in the activity, not always evaluation criteria that have to do with the learning objectives. If we really want to provide a learning experience which is oriented to learning, we recommend you to plan your teaching by the use of a template like this. For example, in this example, you have a topic of debate, okay? All debates, all activities based on online forums has to have a topic of debate, a good formulation, right? And through the different phases of the design. So just a moment, because I'm going to use for a while my template, because if not, I cannot see anything. Yeah, okay. The following slides are, I mean, they are the template that I'm referring to, right? So the design of a debate has four phases. The first one is related to the formulation of the debate, okay? And here what I wanted to point out is that you have to have clear the topic of the debate. In this case, the coronavirus pandemic has led to the pharmaceutical industry being seen as one of the big winners in the health emergency, right? Okay, but this is the topic, but it is not the question. It's good to plan an online debate by setting up a starting point for discussion. And related to this topic, this starting point could be from an analytical accounting point of view. How will the pandemic affect the costs and revenues of pharmaceutical corporation in the long term? This is more, let's say this is closer to the students' activity. It's easier to ask a question than to talk about something. For example, if the topic is the whales in Alaska, okay, let's talk about the whales in Alaska in this forum of debate. But it's easier to make students participate if we just formulate a question. How we can ensure that whales in Alaska have a happy life, okay? Or how we can ensure that they are not killed by large companies, okay? This would be another example. The following slides, let's see if you can pass through some of them. A veure here. Yeah. Okay. Because we are quite run out of time, I just would like to focus on another aspect, which is very important when you design online forums of debate or activities. It's, again, a question related to you as educator. You remember the first part of my presentation? There was a formula of 4 elements plus 1. The first element of the formula was me, the educator. And here in this slide, for example, we can see that we can ask ourselves about our role as conductor of the debate. Will I be a moderator, a facilitator, or an expert? Will I combine both roles or the 3 of the roles? And then here, by using this template, we can say, okay, I'll be playing the 3 roles depending on what stage the debate is at. I'll be the moderator at the first. I'll be helping the students to participate if just in case they don't say anything, or as in fact they are going very far of the topic or the question of the debate, then I will participate as an expert and will help them to find the way again. Okay, so I think that we can move to the rest of the slides. I'm sorry, but I lost my, yeah, okay. I just lost my presentation. Yeah, here again. Okay, sorry. Let's see. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I was lost. I was lost for a while. It's 12:10, so I mean it's okay, this is what you are looking at. And now I just have to find my notes. Sorry, I lost my notes. Just a moment. These things happen. Yeah, found it. As we are quite run out of time, I don't want to improvise, so I just would like to follow my notes so I don't miss anything. Yeah, here they are. Perfect. These are now, after this very quickly explanation about how to plan an activity, in this case, based on a forum of debate in our online classroom or blended scenario. Here you have the conclusions as recommendations to take away. So, and they are 5. First, prioritize formative assessment and feedback in your course design. Stay informed about active teaching and learning methods. Evaluate various assessment strategies. Ensure constructive alignment. And finally, explore digital tools that encourage student participation, critical thinking, and collaboration, and create adaptive pathways, catering to diverse students' needs and promoting self-regulation. So thank you for being here. This is all we wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much. Let me say that you have...
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
If you want, we can start answering some questions that were asked by the people here. First of all, there was a really interesting question about auto-evaluation or self-assessment. So self-assessment, it's true that when it's implemented effectively, is a powerful tool. So it promotes, as I said, metacognition. It helps students understand their strengths, their weaknesses, and their learning strategies. And it also increases engagement and motivation by making them more responsible of their own progress. However, for it works, if we want to work well, it's essential that we integrate the self-assessment in a systematically way. So using clear criteria, tools like rubrics, and combining it with feedback. So that said, we recognize also the challenges. Self-assessment can sometimes be biased or overly critical, and students may initially struggle with assessing themselves accurately. The key is to guide them using tools that helps them calibrate their evaluations. So connecting self-assessment to meaningful outcomes like tracking progress can make it more impactful. In the end, through a thoughtful design is what ensures the success. So when done it right, it really fosters autonomy and reflective learning to students. I always say that when we use this kind of strategies like self-assessment or peer assessment, what we do is make students learn for the second time, because the students have to learn in a first time during the process of understanding the assessment criteria and what he has to do, and he learns for the second time after done it when he has to assess himself, herself, or the colleague. So it's a really powerful strategy for the metacognition skills as well. Another question that we have had here is about or related to the AI to assess our student work. So what should be the purpose of teachers at all with the AI, the artificial intelligence? Are we going to assess the AI instead? So somebody said that strongly believes the use of AI must be totally forbidden in assessment as it promotes ill teaching practices. So that's a very valid concern. First, it's important to note that we are in an exploratory phase when it comes to AI in education, and the technology is evolving really quickly now. So right now, the responsible way to use AI in assessment is to see this kind of tool for teachers and not as a replacement of teachers. So AI can assist by generating initial feedback or suggestions, for example, but finally at the end it's the teacher who validates, adapts, and improves those inputs. And at the same time, AI is also providing useful support for tutoring, but it's true that it requires educating students on its proper use. They need to understand what AI is, which limitations have, how to use it ethically and responsibly, and ultimately the teacher role becomes even more critical, because now we have to guide, we have to validate, we have to ensure the learning process remains meaningful and fair for everybody. Another question that we have had is about how to approach this aspect of micro design and how we can use active methodologies and such clear principles that we were taking into account. And I have to say that to support teachers in implementing these approaches, we can offer several strategies. First of all, it's important to provide ongoing training through customized courses that are focuses on active methodologies and micro design, so the training of teachers. Second, we have to facilitate continuous learning design guidance through a teaching and learning center or pedagogical team. So this is related to institutional support. Then we have the peer collaboration that I was talking about. So we have to encourage teachers to exchange practices and participate in peer reviews of core designs, for example. Then we have the engagement of a project. So we have to involve teachers in innovation and research initiatives to deepen their understanding of this kind of methodologies, and to improve the skills on it. Then we have to talk about networking opportunities. So promote participation in conferences, forums, webinars, seminars focused on teaching practices. And related to that, we have to take into account to reward teachers' participation in these activities, to motivate them to engage and acknowledge achievements. Then I would like to talk as well of practical resources. So we can offer them clear guidelines, templates, checklists to streamline decision making and to ensure that the key elements are included in their design, in their teaching design. Then we can put into practice mentorship programs or something like that. So pair less experienced teachers with instructional designers or seasoned mentors for hands-on support on each other. We also can talk about communities of practice. So we can build spaces for sharing best practices, discussing challenges and learning collaboratively. We can also talk about like an observatory. So we can provide access to insights on the latest trends in educational technology and their applications. And finally, I think it's important to focus as well on evaluation. So we have to emphasize that reflective practices and impact assessments, tying back to the evaluation phase, and we have to take into account that the model that we were discussing earlier. So by combining these strategies, I think we can create a robust system of support that empowers our teachers or ourselves to embrace and excel in these methodologies we were talking about today with Chris. I don't know, Chris, if you want to follow up with the other questions.
Yes, maybe there's one. Well, there's one. It says, for which categories of students do you offer these courses? How do you select students who meet the minimum requirements of the training? I'm not sure if I understand the question, but we are an open university and the students are not selected. Our main mission is, as an open educational institution, is to offer access to everybody. Sometimes it can be that some programs have a limit of enrollments because it depends on the national rules established for each program and university, but it happens just in a few programs. And the general requirements for access are related to the minimum of accreditation they need to access to the university, as happens in all universities. So I don't know if I can be of further help in this. Hope to have understood the question.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
I don't think there are more questions.
Don't think so. Okay, then we can finish up here. Are there any more questions? Someone willing to participate now? And if not, then we should close the session. Yeah, Maite?
Yes, I think yes.
Okay, then let me say that to all the audience that you have a brief questionnaire for you to assess the sessions today, the two sessions today, the previous one and this one. And let me remind you that tomorrow you will have two more webinars, one related to trends on digital learning in higher education, and the other will be focused on course quality on digital learning, so that we count on you tomorrow.